The summer sun beats down on the Browns' training facility, the air thick with expectation, tension, and sweat. Helmets clang. Cleats dig into turf, and whistles echo across the field like punctuation in a script still being written. And through it all, moving calmly through the chaos, is Shedeur Sanders. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. He isn't the loudest player at camp. He doesn't thump his chest after big plays or seek out cameras after drills. He doesn't throw shade at other quarterbacks or offer excuses for fewer reps. Instead, he studies. He asks questions. He prepares. Because Shedeur Sanders doesn't need to tell people who he is. He shows them. Each day at camp, his approach is surgical. He arrives early, usually before most of the coaching staff. While others scroll through their phones in the locker room, he's on his second cup of coffee, flipping through film, noting coverages, marking route adjustments. And when practice starts, he's not thinking about whether he's running with the second team or the first. He's thinking about how to make the most of every rep, every snap, every read. This isn't new behavior. It's who Shedeur's always been. It's how he climbed the ranks at Jackson State, how he transitioned to a Power 5 program under a microscope, how he kept his head down when critics labeled him entitled or too flashy before ever watching him throw a pass. At Brown's camp, those old narratives are falling apart, replaced by something no one can deny: results. In one scrimmage period, Shedeur walks into the huddle with quiet focus. The second-team offensive line looks nervous. The defense across from them? Stacked. But Sanders doesn't blink. Snap 1. Quick read, slant route, perfectly placed ball in stride. Gain of 12. Snap 2. Disguise pressure off the edge. Shedeur doesn't panic. He slides, resets, dumps it to the running back in the flat. Gain of 9. Snap 3. Red zone look, corner route, tight window. Touchdown. No shouting. No celebration. Just a nod and a jog back to the sideline. Because for Shedeur, this isn't about proving the media wrong or showing up his teammates. It's about proving himself right. He's been telling himself for years he could do this, that he belonged here. And now he's showing it. Quietly, methodically, relentlessly. What's striking to observers isn't just the arm talent, though it's undeniable. It's not just the accuracy or the footwork or the improved mechanics from the spring. It's the presence. The way veterans on defense nod in quiet approval after a good throw. The way assistant coaches stay a few seconds longer after his reps, huddling to whisper about what they just saw. Even star linebacker Jerome Baker, a respected voice in the locker room, paused during his press conference when asked about Sanders. "He's composed," Baker said, shaking his head with a half smile. Like, real composed. For a rookie, that's rare. You can feel it when you're on the field with him. He's locked in. And it's not just the players noticing. The media, often hungry for drama, is struggling to find any cracks. There are no headlines about tantrums or ego or entitlement. Just story after story about how seriously Sanders takes his preparation. How he's winning people over not with noise, but with professionalism. Even after throwing 5 touchdowns during a scrimmage session, a performance that would have most rookies rushing to social media or gloating in post-practice interviews, Shedeur stayed humble. "I'm just doing my job," he said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I'm grateful to be here. I know reps are earned, not given. I'm just trying to be ready for when my number's called." And that's the part that resonates most with the coaching staff. Kevin Stefanski, a coach known for his meticulous approach, has started giving Shedeur more looks in situational drills. 3rd and long, 2-minute offense, 4th quarter red zone reps. The kind of scenarios that test a quarterback's mind, not just his arm. And Sanders? He's thriving. In one 2-minute drill, he orchestrated a 9-play, 78-yard drive with 0 timeouts. The final play, a back shoulder fade in the corner of the end zone with a defender draped over his receiver, was NFL caliber. The sideline erupted. But still, Shedeur didn't spike the ball or pump his fist. He calmly jogged back to the sideline, grabbed a towel, and rewatched the rep on the tablet with the quarterback's coach. Because that's what leaders do. They don't celebrate one good day. They stack them. There's another layer to Sanders that has won over the locker room. His humility. During one media day session, he noticed Jerome Baker waiting to finish his press conference. Rather than barge into the spotlight, Shedeur stood quietly to the side until Baker was done, then offered a handshake and stepped up. A small gesture, but one that speaks volumes in a league where egos often clash. Players notice that kind of thing. Coaches do too. It's leadership, even if it's not scripted. And let's be clear, the leadership Shedeur brings isn't performative. He's not giving rah-rah speeches or shouting in the locker room. His leadership is felt in the way he prepares, the way he studies, the way he takes coaching, the way he stays after practice to throw extra routes with backup, receivers who might not even make the roster. It's in the way he talks about his teammates, never throwing anyone under the bus, even when asked directly about rep distribution or frustrations. We're all growing, he says. It's a blessing to compete with these guys. That kind of maturity, it's rare in a rookie. And it's why veterans coaches, and even front office personnel, are starting to view him differently. The quarterback room, once dominated by Kenny Pickett and Dillon Gabriel, now has a quiet tension, not animosity, but awareness. They know Shedeur is coming, and they know the coaching staff sees it too. The only question now is how long it will take before that reality is reflected in the depth chart. Because right now, no matter where he stands on paper, Shedeur Sanders is QB1 in mindset, effort, and execution. And if the Browns are serious about building a winning culture, about doing things differently than they have for the last 2 decades, then maybe the boldest move they can make is the one that's already playing out in front of them. Trust the kid who's not asking for the job. He's just earning it, snap by snap, quietly, relentlessly, unforgettably. Ask ChatGPT. By day 12 of Browns training camp, the whispers were getting louder. Coaches, media, even teammates, no one could deny it anymore. Shedeur Sanders was forcing a conversation, not because of media hype, not because of flashy headlines, but because of football. Because when the pads came on, when it was 3rd and 8 and the pressure was in his face, Sanders delivered. And now the coaching staff had a problem on their hands. A good one, but a problem nonetheless. They had a plan. Draft a 3rd rounder with a polished resume in Dillon Gabriel. Bring in Kenny Pickett, a known commodity. Give Joe Flacco the veteran mentor role. Let Shedeur sit, learn, develop. It looked clean on paper. But Shedeur wasn't following the paper plan. He was writing a different script, one that no one could erase, no matter how much they tried to stall him behind a depth chart or limit his reps to the second team. And the tension? It was showing. At practice, Shedeur was now consistently outplaying Gabriel and doing it with the backup unit. Even with lesser talent around him, his drives were more efficient, more fluid, more dangerous. Defensive starters had started paying attention. When 5 is out there, one corner was overheard saying, "You actually got to respect the deep ball." That wasn't a shot at Gabriel or Pickett, but it was a shift in tone. In an NFL training camp, nothing speaks louder than respect from the defense. They're the first to know when a quarterback's got it because they're the ones he has to beat rep after rep. And Sanders? He wasn't just beating them. He was doing it calmly, like he expected to. There was a 4-play sequence in a red zone drill that caught everyone's eye. First play, play action bootleg, hits the tight end in the flat, 6 yards. Second play, pump fake, reset, lasers one over the middle, 1st down. Third play, pressure up the middle, he slides, climbs the pocket, finds a slot receiver cutting across the end zone. Touchdown. 4th play, celebration? Nope. Sanders jogged back to the sideline, took off his helmet, and started reviewing film on the tablet with the quarterback's coach. It was textbook, but more than that, it was leadership without the spectacle. That's what's setting Shedeur apart. Not just his performance, but the way he performs. The control, the silence, the absence of panic. And the rest of the locker room? They feel it. Receivers started requesting to run routes for Shedeur after practice. A few offensive linemen asked to join his extra film sessions in the evenings. Even veterans, guys with no obligation to mentor a rookie, were asking Sanders for his perspective on coverages. He was becoming a gravitational force. And with that came a decision. The Browns' coaching staff could no longer delay. After a particularly dominant Saturday practice, where Shedeur went 10 for 12 with 3 touchdowns and 0 turnovers, head coach Kevin Stefanski was asked directly, will Shedeur get first-team reps this week? There was a pause. Stefanski, usually calculated with his words, didn't dismiss it. We're evaluating everyone, he said. Shedeur has earned everything he's gotten so far. We're going to take a closer look. Translation? The door had cracked open. It wasn't long before Shedeur was taking snaps with the ones in walk throughs, then in 7-on-7, then finally in full-team drills. And when he got that shot, he didn't flinch. In his first live rep of the starters, he checked out a run, recognized the blitz, and hit Jerry Jeudy on a go route, a 40-yard bomb that drew a collective woe from the sideline. Jeudy jogged back grinning. Told y'all, this dude is cold. Still, the politics of quarterback selection in the NFL are never just about performance. There's ego involved. There's the draft board. There's internal pride from front offices who don't want to admit they might have drafted the wrong guy higher than the right one. That's what Shedeur was really battling. But the tape doesn't lie. And the film room, that sacred space where politics take a backseat to production, was starting to look one-sided. In the last 3 practices, Shedeur had posted the highest QB rating, lowest turnover percentage, and best red zone conversion rate. He'd also absorbed the most hits without flinching and without blaming his O-line. His composure had become his calling card. The Browns fan base, meanwhile, had picked their side. Social media was flooded with highlights, slow-mo replays of his throws, and side-by-side comparisons with Gabriel and Pickett. The hashtags may have been unofficial, but the sentiment was loud and clear. Start Shedeur. He wasn't just the rookie quarterback anymore. He was the movement. And yet, with all the attention, Sanders stayed rooted. When asked about the growing chance and the media pressure, his response was classic Shedeur. The job's not mine until they hand me the ball in week 1. Until then, I'm just trying to earn it every day. That's all I can control. It wasn't just talk. It was his blueprint. While other rookies were posing for Instagram stories, Shedeur was back on the practice field with third-string receivers, fine-tuning red zone timing. While some were politicking for reps, he was studying blitz pickups with the offensive line coach after hours. That kind of work ethic, it's contagious. Even defensive captain Myles Garrett weighed in. You want to root for guys like that, he said in a post-practice interview. No excuses, just effort. That's what a quarterback should be. By the final week of camp, a shift had occurred. The coaching staff started allocating reps differently, subtly at first, but then, clearly, the drills changed. The order changed. Shedeur was no longer waiting for his turn behind 3 others. He was leading them. And while the Browns haven't made an official QB1 announcement yet, the writing's on the whiteboard. The momentum is undeniable. The leadership is real. The performance? That speaks for itself. Shedeur Sanders walked into training camp as a 5th-round pick, an afterthought to some, a media sideshow to others. But now, he's not just fighting for a job. He's forcing a reckoning. With every rep, every throw, every quiet display of discipline and resolve, he's asking the Browns one simple question. Are you finally ready to do things differently? Because if you are, if you're ready to bet on talent, not politics, the answer's been staring you in the face for weeks. Number 5, helmet on, head down, game ready, not waiting, not begging, just earning it, one throw at a time. The days leading up to the Browns' first preseason game were tense, not chaotic, not toxic, but simmering with anticipation. Inside the locker room, players were locked in. Outside, the fan base was split. Not because they didn't believe in Shedeur Sanders. Quite the opposite. But because they feared the organization might not act on what was obvious. After all, the Browns have a well-documented history of being late to the party, drafting quarterbacks too high, bailing on them too soon, or doubling down on bad bets because admitting a mistake was worse than correcting it. But this time it was different. The quarterback in question wasn't raw. He wasn't overwhelmed. And he wasn't campaigning for the job with sound bites or Instagram stories. Shedeur was showing up, lacing his cleats, and earning the trust of grown men. There's something powerful about that, especially when it's earned, not given. Veteran wide receiver Amari Cooper, not known for being overly expressive, was asked about the chemistry forming between him and the rookie. His response? Simple but telling. He throws it where I need it, on time. That's all you can ask. And then came the preseason opener. It wasn't just a test for Shedeur. It was a referendum on everything that had happened in camp, on every rep, every decision made behind closed doors, and every quiet but deliberate shift in the quarterback room. Shedeur took the field midway through the first quarter. The crowd at First Energy Stadium erupted, not just in excitement, but in curiosity. The rookie who had generated whispers and highlight clips in camp was now under the lights. The moment of truth had arrived. First snap, play-action rollout. He plants, throws across his body, strike to the tight end for 12 yards. No nerves, no hesitation. Second snap, drop back, quick read, sees a linebacker bite on a slant. Delivers a back shoulder fade to Judy. Another completion. Crowd rising. 2 plays later, red zone. Sanders scans, pump fakes, pulls a safety, and fires a laser into seam for a touchdown. Drive. 6 plays, 75 yards. All Shedeur. And the stadium? Absolutely unglued. By halftime, Shedeur had completed 13 of 14 passes for 176 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also scrambled twice, both for first downs, smart, calculated runs that showed off his vision and football IQ without risking unnecessary hits. But beyond the stats, it was the feel of the offense under Sanders that shifted everything. The pace was better, the play calling looser, receivers were sharper, the line held up. He made the unit feel cohesive, alive. Coaches noticed. So did the front office. Even the camera panned repeatedly to owner Jimmy Haslam, who was grinning like a man who just watched his investment multiply in real time. And as the second half began, something else changed. The sideline. Veteran QBs were no longer standing in front. Shedeur stood in the center, surrounded by linemen, backs, receivers, and defensive players. He wasn't leading a PR campaign. He was commanding respect. Naturally, when the game ended Browns' win, 24-17, social media exploded. Not because of the final score, but because of the subtext. This was supposed to be a learning opportunity, a get-your-feet-wet moment for the rookie. Instead, it became a statement. I don't want to make it bigger than it is, Stefanski said post-game. But, yeah, he made it hard to ignore. Now, let's be real. One preseason game doesn't lock down a job. But for a player like Sanders, who had already spent weeks outpacing expectations in practice, this wasn't about the scoreboard. It was about validation. It was about proof. And for every fan who's lived through 25 different quarterbacks in the last 20 years, this felt different. It felt earned. But of course, Cleveland is still Cleveland. There will be politics. There would be evaluations. And there would absolutely be pressure to start the season with a safe choice, which raised the next big question. Could the Browns afford to go back? Back to indecision. Back to excuse-making. Back to propping up quarterbacks who'd had their chance, who weren't making these throws, who weren't rallying the locker room behind them. Because once a team has seen the guy, pretending he's not the guy only delays the inevitable. And the longer you delay, the more you risk losing the locker room and the fan base. Again, in the days following the preseason win, Shedeur's impact expanded off the field. Merchandise spiked. Jerseys sold out at team stores. National sports shows finally moved his name from honorable mention to full segment material. Analysts who had dismissed his chances at the draft were walking back their takes, one 60-second highlight montage at a time. And back in Berea, Ohio, practice reps were being shuffled, not just evenly, intentionally. Sanders was now taking half of all first-team drills. And for the first time since camp began, the quarterback meeting room was being treated like an open audition, not a coronation. Even Dylan Gabriel, who'd once been viewed as a long-term backup plan, was reportedly feeling the heat. According to one staffer, Gabriel approached the coach privately after practice and asked, "What more can I do?" The answer? Simple, be better than Shedeur. So far, he wasn't. The coaching staff, now under growing pressure, tried to balance their talking points. "There's no rush," Stefanski repeated in pressers. "We want to get it right, not fast." But fans weren't buying it. Neither were players. Every throw Shedeur made at practice drew a crowd. Every post-practice presser came with the same question. When will a decision be made? And the answer, whether they said it out loud or not, was already written on the field. Because Shedeur wasn't just outperforming his peers. He was elevating the entire operation. Line play had improved. Receivers were cutting harder. Even the defense admitted they were more locked in when Sanders took reps, knowing the ball was going to come fast, precise, and unforgiving. And that kind of shift, that doesn't come from hype. That comes from presence. By week 3 of the preseason, it was no longer a matter of if, it was when. And that when was fast approaching. Because every moment Shedeur Sanders stayed on the sideline was a moment wasted. Not just for him, but for a franchise desperate to win now. The Browns had a choice to make. Hold on to their plans, their charts, their draft pride, or do what winners do. Adapt, trust the tape, and ride with a quarterback who'd already earned the team's trust before the season had even started. It's not just a football decision anymore. It's a credibility one. And Shedeur Sanders? He's ready. Game on.